This is chilling, I should warn you, utterly disturbing. Now, you may ask reasonably if it's possible to still be disturbed by anything that the Israeli state does to the Palestinian people. Well, I would implore you, never stop being shocked, because otherwise we unwittingly normalise the depravity currently being facilitated by Western governments. The Israeli army has often dropped leaflets on Gaza as part of its campaign of psychological warfare. Well, some new leaflets have just been dropped. They feature a picture of US President Donald Trump alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a wanted man who has an arrest warrant against him issued by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. It has been translated by Jihad Abasalim, a Palestinian writer. Let me just read it out to you. To the honourable people of Gaza, after the events have taken place, the temporary ceasefire, and before the implementation of Trump's mandatory plan, which will impose forced displacement upon you, whether you accept it or not, we've decided to make one final appeal to those who wish to receive aid in exchange for cooperating with us. We will not hesitate for a moment to provide assistance. Reconsider your position. The world map will not change if all the people of Gaza cease to exist. No one would feel for you. No one will ask about you. You have been left alone to face your inevitable fate. Iran cannot even protect itself, let alone protect you. And you have seen with your own eyes what has happened. Neither America nor Europe care about Gaza in any way. Even your Arab countries, which are now our allies, provide us with money and weapons while sending you only shrouds. There is little time left. The game is almost over. Whoever wishes to save themselves before it's too late, we are here, remaining until the end of time. Let me refer back to what was said by Raz Segal, the brilliant Israeli-American associate professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies, on the 13th of October 2023, right at the very beginning of this genocidal mayhem. He wrote the following: Israel's genocidal assault on Gaza is quite explicit, open, and unashamed. Perpetrators of genocide usually do not express their intentions so clearly, though there are exceptions. You see, what he's saying there is normally states do commit criminal acts, indeed genocide, and they go, in the overwhelming number of cases, to great lengths to cover up what they're doing. Not so with the Israeli state in this genocide. Its leaders, its officials, its soldiers, its media outlets, its journalists, its ordinary citizens have relentlessly and shamelessly articulated their genocidal intent from day one. This leaflet is a confession of grave, grave war crimes. In this leaflet, the Israeli state tries to terrify Palestinian citizens into collaborating with an Israeli state which has wiped Gaza out, slaughtered and maimed their loved ones, inflicted grave injury and trauma on them, starved them. Well, we could go on. It suggests that if they do not collaborate with the Israeli state, then they're going to die. It states, the world map will not change if all the people of Gaza cease to exist. No one will feel for you and no one will ask about you. This is not even subtle in its genocidal intent. It is discussing there the total extermination of the people of Gaza, and states that if they are all exterminated, then they will all be forgotten. Now, we are told that we should resist comparisons between the behaviour of Israel and the behaviour of the Nazis, and I've always done that. Yet, I would just say this. Who could read those lines and not recall, if they were aware of these words I'm about to state, what was said by Adolf Hitler in 1939? Because he said, who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians? Could somebody explain the material difference between what this leaflet written by the Israeli authorities and addressed to the people of Gaza, the difference between this leaflet and what was said by the Nazi leader 86 years ago? The leaflet refers to Trump's mandatory plan, which will impose forced displacement upon you whether you accept it or not. Well, here, Israel's sense of impunity is clearly overwhelming. Forced displacement is just a war crime. It's an objective war crime. It's also a war crime which can only take place with hideous levels of violence and death. You see, the people of Gaza don't want to leave their land. The vast majority of them are the relatives of those who were forced to flee what is now Israel when it was founded over 3/4 of a century ago. They were forced to flee then and never allowed to return. The Israeli army will only be able to drive people out of Gaza by using violence far more intense than the violence already unleashed, which you may struggle to even imagine. And no, as Antony Blinken, the former US Secretary of State, conceded last month before Donald Trump assumed the presidency. He said the following: "We assess that Hamas has recruited almost as many militants as it has lost," adding, "That is a recipe for enduring insurgency and perpetual war." You see, if you butcher people, if you slaughter them and leave them with no hope whatsoever, then clearly you will provide endless recruits because of the loved ones who wish to avenge the slaughter of their children, their parents, their lovers. We could go on. An attempt to forcibly remove the Palestinian people from their homeland will trigger mass armed resistance inevitably, which Israel will respond to with even more depraved violence. And based on their past behavior, that will be combined with a total siege on the means of life, food, energy, fuel, water, shelter. We could go on. I mean, just today, the brilliant Palestinian journalist Hossam Shabat tweets, "Beit Hanun village is completely destroyed. They did not receive the slightest humanitarian aid, and the families live in tense and difficult humanitarian conditions amidst the destruction, defying all displacement projects. Drinking water is not available, whether it's potable or not." That's now. That's with a ceasefire in place. A ceasefire which is supposed to allow humanitarian aid in, which Israel, in terms of its agreement, keeps violating in terms of allowing humanitarian aid in. We do not know how many Palestinians have been directly killed by Israeli violence and indirectly by being deprived of food, water, energy, shelter, medical attention, and so on, but some estimate it to be hundreds of thousands. Notably, Donald Trump keeps referring to how all the people of Gaza will be deported, which he says means probably 1.7 million, maybe 1.8 million. But Gaza's pre-war population was around 2.3 million, which suggests he has received intelligence estimates that hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been killed since this genocide began. This violent deporting of an entire people would kill hundreds of thousands of people on top of the number who've already been killed. It is worth just returning to what was written in that leaflet. The leaflet tries to make Palestinians give up all hope by telling them that nobody cares about them, that they've been completely abandoned. And it is true the Arab dictatorships have done nothing meaningful to save the Palestinians from their hideous fate. And it is also true that Western states, such as Britain, where I currently am, have armed and facilitated this genocide. But to the people of Gaza, hundreds of millions, billions of people are with you. The polling in countries like here in Britain is clear. The polling shows that the large majority think Israel is guilty of war crimes, think we should end all arms sales, and that Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested. Millions of people have been changed forever by you. And we are not going to give up on the Palestinian people, come what may. Never feel you are alone or abandoned, because so many of us are with you to the very end and will not stop until our government cease facilitating the hideous fates being imposed upon you, and will not stop until there is a free Palestine. That leaflet will one day be presented to the courts as just another piece of damning evidence about the criminal and genocidal intent of Israel. It will also be offered up as yet more evidence that there was no excuses for not knowing what Israel's intent was, and that therefore the Western politicians who armed and facilitated this abomination will also face their day in court as well. Please like and subscribe, leave your thoughts and your comments. Help us as we expand on patreon.com/SamuelJones84 in terms of the different social media platforms. Also the podcast, you can listen to this on the podcast. Do share the video, get the message out, and liking and all the rest is good for the algorithm, so it gets the word out. And I'll speak to you soon.